You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Do you want to experience the thrill of a Packers game at Lambeau Field? If so, be sure to get your game tickets from the longtime trusted source in Wisconsin, Ticket King. Visit their locations in Milwaukee and Green Bay, or just go to their website, theticketking.com. Again, that's theticketking.com.
Check New York Bozo! New York Bozo! New York Bozo!
I got to get my biceps a little bigger.
Yeah, you can always work on that.
Or I could sure use a hot dog with chili.
You know what time the game starts? Hey, you got any left-handed footballs? We need to fire him. Is anybody else tired, or is it just me? Good thing I'm in shape.
You got any eligibility left?
I got some advice for y'all. Take 2 weeks off, then quit.
Pack to the Future is brought to you by the Ticket King. Whether you're making the trip to see Aaron Rodgers and the Packers play at legendary Lambeau Field, you want to see Giannis and the Bucks at the beautiful Fiserv Forum, or the Badgers, Brewers, or any concert tickets you might need, the Ticket King is your source no matter the occasion. Visit them online at theticketking.com and search their selection for yourself. And remember, there's no such thing as a sellout when you can go to the Ticket King. One more time, that's theticketking.com.
Hey there, we are ready to talk Packers football with our post-game review of the Denver Broncos versus the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field. Once again, I am your host, Duke, and I am joined by Matt. Say what's up, Matt.
Hey, what's going on, Packer Nation?
Let's talk. Let's go ahead and dive right into this. Listen, I was excited to see the Packers leading us off, man, to another victory. That's 3 in a row, 3-0 for the Green Bay Packers, man. Let's talk about what you saw in this game. Let's go ahead and start with the offense. What would you see, man, out of the Packer offense yesterday?
Well, I think you saw, again, we're starting, you're 3 weeks in, you're starting to see some themes that are going on with this football team now. And one of the biggest themes for me is the scripted plays are working really well right now. Like, they're in rhythm, they're in sync. That bomb to, obviously it was the bomb to MVS was a little bit more unscripted, but
right.
They still had a lot of things going well for them. Like, the running game was really, really working for them. The conditions kind of forced their hand a little bit in that regard. They probably would have liked to air it out a little bit more. I know they had some struggles on that end, but they kind of got off script, and the offense, again, kind of showed some wrinkles in it that, this is the third week in a row where they started out strong and then kind of falter a little bit. But, in the end, they get enough points on the board, and they move the ball just enough to, get by with another victory. And there is a lot to be said for that. It's tough to win in this league.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely on the same page with you. It's one of those things where offensively, it was a little bit of, again, a Jekyll and Hyde, if you will. Started off fast. Obviously Rodgers doing what he does best, drawing them off sides with the free play. Marquez, getting down the field, just, having the smarts in the moment to just get open. And with that 4.3 speed, man, it's not too hard for him to just literally fly down the field.
Yeah.
Rodgers put it on him, and it was such an exciting start to the game, Obviously, there was the ebbs and flows. We saw a little bit of, Aaron Jones, having a big week last week. He really kind of got, I know the stat sheet shows that, and for the fantasy footballers out there, he had 2 touchdowns. But, Aaron Jones was actually kind of rendered pretty ineffective this week. What were your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so the conditions just weren't his game, and honestly, he's a make you miss kind of guy. So when the conditions slow down a little bit more, it's going to affect his game a little bit. But
right.
He's still, he can affect the game in a lot of ways. They used him at the goal line a lot, so it kind of creates some mismatches. So it was definitely a better game for Jamal Williams. It was more tailored to his skill set. He's a little bit more of a power rusher. And he played really well. He averaged 4.9 yards per carry. Like, that's exactly what they needed from him. He fought for every yard, and you love to see it out of him. I know he gets some grief for, he hasn't been the biggest yak guy out there, but, he's really strong in pass protection. He runs hard, and these are the games you hope that he has, in cold weather situations, in, adverse weather. That's why he's around, is for pass protection and for those kinds of games. And honestly, to have that kind of depth was huge.
Yeah, he definitely grinded it out when, the offense really needed somebody to do something. Obviously the receivers, it wasn't much of a big day from them, but rushing, he had 12 attempts for 59 yards. He caught a few passes. He had a couple catches for 27 yards. And for me personally, he was my offensive player of the game.
For sure. And honestly, it was so important to have that, because at times the offense just stalled, and it was just good to pick up some yardage here or there from Williams. And he had a couple of really tough runs in there. And in a game where Aaron Rodgers wasn't all that sharp, it was really important. So, hats off to him. And obviously, I just love the swagger after the first down where he got his helmet ripped off. That was so much fun. And he's just such an electrifying player when he gets those plays too. Like, you're just happy for him,
Yeah. Somebody definitely needs to make a GIF or GIF. I don't know which side of the fence you're on that argument, but he definitely needs that one made of him. That was special, and it was awesome, because there was actually quite a few of those moments out there. You had a Za'Darius with the sack, and then I think it was Marquez actually on his touchdown dance was pretty cool. So somebody needs to get on that, one of those internet social media guys,
Yeah. Oh, and those team celebrations after turnovers were the best. Oh, I want to see so much more of that.
Yeah, I want. You know what, man? I want one from the offense. I want a special one from the offense, because right now defense is just dominating the day. But before we turn that page, let's talk about the receivers a little bit. So just my 2 cents on it. The receivers are definitely going to need to step up in the weeks to come, because I don't think we're necessarily at the point of panic. But let me ask you a tough question. I'm not sure if you're prepared for this, but I'm gonna just throw it at you. What's your take on the offense not clicking? Now, let me give you a couple options here. Is it timing? Is it rhythm? Is it taking the preseason off? Is it Matt and Aaron's relationship? Is it play calling? Or is it the fact that they've just played against some good defenses? Now, let me give you a quick stat. Minnesota is 6th in points allowed. The Bears are 3rd and Denver's 17th. So 2 out of 3 are, the upper half of the league.
Mm-hmm. So honestly, I would option C. Is that an option on all of the above? Where no, but so here's the problem. Last year, Denver, Minnesota, and Chicago ranked as all top 5 in Football Outsiders DVOA as far as the top 5 defenses.
Right.
So no matter what, every amount of points that this offense has put up has been up against some really top flight defenses. So that's part of it. Part of it is Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur are getting used to each other. This is a new offense that each are trying to feel each other out, and that's why I think the scripted plays have gone really well, is because that's where the chemistry really comes in. They're on the same page at all times because they've rehearsed this. They've planned for this. When they're out of sync is when they have to kind of adjust. And honestly, I think that part just comes with time. I really do. I think, LaFleur will start to figure Aaron Rodgers out a little bit more, and Rodgers will, that's where that relationship will really come in. There'll be a little bit more of a give and take from their end. And this is something that I'm actually writing on right now. I think the bigger factor is outside of Devontae Adams, they just don't have a true number 2 right now. And I want to go in a little bit more into that, because I think MVS can be that. He has all the talent to be that. And he showed it yesterday, with that bomb. He's got that 4.3 speed, but you also saw the yips. You saw the drops that he has in there. He has those inconsistencies. And one of the big reasons is the Packers just haven't put much draft capital or money behind receivers. Like Davante Adams is the one receiver they've really put a lot into it, and he was a day two pick. He was a second round pick. Right. MVS and St. Brown, and they spent a fourth rounder on Jamon Moore. These are all day 3 guys, and Geronimo Allison's an undrafted free agent. They haven't put a lot behind those receivers. And it's starting to show. Like in the Ted Thompson era, you had second round picks and day 2 picks all the time that, really contributed for this team. So Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, James Jones, Jermichael Finley, all were day 2 picks in the draft. And it's no surprise that the receivers have kind of struggled since, they haven't really done any of that since 2015. So it's just kind of a perfect storm right now. I think MVS will get there, but they definitely need something else on the receivers.
Right, yeah. So right now, on the season, MVS and Adams are almost identical, 15 receptions, 13 receptions, 198 yards for Adams, 170 for MVS, averaging 13.2 and 13.1. Adams without a TD for the first time in a long time. So going 3 weeks and no TDs for Adams is pretty rare air for him to be playing in Valdez-Scantling with 1. So, yeah, and here's the thing. Now let's talk about all the other guys. The third best receiver on the Packers right now is Jamal Williams.
Yeah.
And that's really surprising. And guess the fourth is Aaron Jones. And apart from that, you've got Allison with 5 catches for 24 yards, Mercedes Lewis, Jimmy Graham, Tanyan, Vitali, and Kumaro. And so, yeah, definitely, MVS and Allison are the 2 guys to really watch here because, we can go back to this past week with the big trade that happened of letting Trevor Davis go to the Raiders. While I'm not necessarily, I wasn't really against it. I guess in my opinion, though, when it comes to the receiving side of things, because I thought for a minute there, Davis was going to get an opportunity to contribute on offense. And obviously now that is out of the picture. And now we're just looking at, Shepard, you got Kumaro, and then you got Allison, Valdez-Scantling. I'm kind of wondering, what their thinking is here because it's like I said, it's too early to press the panic button, but it's just something to definitely keep our eyes on.
Yep. And honestly, I think to your point, there isn't a ton behind those guys, but they're definitely hoping for the development of MVS or when he comes back, St. Brown. I think they actually that's the reason why I think they got rid of Trevor Davis is I think they know that St. Brown that they're going to use one of their designated to return on St. Brown, or is he IR for the entire year? I don't think he's IR for the entire year, but
no, I don't believe so. I think he's eligible. I think that's where they left him, if I remember correctly as well.
And I think that would be what they end up doing because honestly, right now it's a lot hinging on MVS to really develop. And oh, by the way, if Davante Adams goes down, you're all of a sudden that's when you hit the panic button, right? Like there's nobody behind him right now where you have the absolute confidence in. MVS is the closest one. Allison's probably next after that, but that's kind of one thing I want to talk about next is how much more run are you going to give Geronimo Allison if he's going to keep dropping the ball and fumbling right now? I know he's had moments where he's been great, but boy, you got Shepard behind him, Kumaro, and Lazard, another one that, he's a really athletic guy. You got to start giving some of these guys looks if Allison's not going to perform.
Right. I think, the immediate guy that we have to just assume should be, kind of, able to unseat Allison would be Kumaro. Granted, if Adams and MVS are healthy, they're always going to be out there. And, this is Kumaro's shot because right now, with Allison having some struggles, and really, I guess this is the way I look at it. all these defenses are putting their top guy on Adams.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they've been doing it week after week. So that'll tell you that the lesser talent is on, against Allison, against MVS, and the other guys. So that being said, it's kind of like, hey, listen, you should be hopefully feasting on these opportunities. And if Allison's not going to step up, Rodgers has vouched for Kumaro multiple times over the offseason. He says, the guy's a smart player. He's got good hands. He gets in the right spots in the defense. He finds these open spaces, and hey man, let's see what he looks like, and hopefully that'll light a fire under Allison.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, if Allison isn't the chemistry guy, because that was the biggest thing for a while, right? Like he and Rodgers had great chemistry, and I don't know if it's the injury, I don't know if it's the new offense, but that chemistry just isn't there right now. It could come back, and this is all speculative, right? Like MVS can develop into that second wide receiver. He's not there yet. Allison could be that second wide receiver. He's been that quality at times before, but he's not that right now. So it could get to that point, but I mean, you got to start looking at guys like Kumaro, and I'm not one to completely jump on the Kumaro bandwagon, but if he has chemistry with Rodgers, I mean, you have to give it a shot at this point, because something on the offense isn't clicking right now, and it's the execution front. Like there's just no rhythm. There's just no rhythm in the passing game. Outside of Devontae Adams, and like you said, he's got the top corner on him every single time this week. It was Chris Harris, but he's also getting double and triple teamed. Like if the other receivers are struggling, they're absolutely going to shift their protection over to Adams. And until their other wide receivers can prove that they can catch the ball consistently, it's going to be a struggle.
Yeah, they've got to beat their man. I mean, that's just what it's going to come down to at this point. And like you said, I think they're just going to keep testing this Packers offense, and they're going to have to prove them wrong. Luckily for their offense yesterday, Jamal Williams happened to just kind of be that guy that they sort of rode to victory in a way, because he had much of the plays that attributed to keeping drives going, converting on third down, and while he doesn't have a touchdown next to his name, the truth is that, I mean, like I said, he was helping them move the chains, and in those successful drives, Jamal Williams was key on all of those. So it was good. It was good for them that he stepped up. But yeah, the other guys are definitely going to need to figure this thing out.
Yeah, honestly, it'll be interesting to see. But one thing that I think that we need to talk on real quick here is the offensive line had a dynamite game yesterday. They kept Aaron Rodgers completely clean in the pocket. No sacks for that vaunted pass rush of Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. That's really, honestly, that's something that you go into a game like that where there's sloppy conditions. You have a good pass rush against you and a good coordinator. Vic Fangio is a really good defensive coordinator and has given the Packers fits at times. But, props to that offensive line. They kept Aaron Rodgers upright.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, he was, like he said, I think he was taken down to the ground once in the entire game, which was on the Fatali catch. And what's so awesome to see about that is he literally said, in his post-game presser, Rodgers was saying, "I feel great." And that's awesome because they got a game on Thursday. It's a super short week. I can imagine that these guys are really going to have to do their homework. They're going to have to study hard. They're going to have to prepare in a short amount of time for, a Philadelphia team that lost to the Lions. It was to the Lions, right?
Yeah, they lost 27-24, I think.
Yeah. I actually watched the tail end of that game, and they lost a tough one to Detroit, and so again, they're looking to bounce back. These guys were in the Super Bowl a few years ago. This is not. Somebody had posted on Twitter. It was a comment that I read that this Denver game, a lot of people were calling the trap game. I actually felt that this Eagles game was a trap game. One, because again, it was in a short week. And 2, because, this is an opponent that these guys have, they're 2 years removed from a Super Bowl. Okay. And so this roster, on defense and on offense, they got a lot of the same guys. There's not a ton of turnover. And so you better believe that they're going to come into Green Bay and they're going to give them, the best shot.
Yeah, and luckily it's a short week, and the Eagles are coming in a little banged up. I know Alshon Jeffrey is hurt. I know one of their cornerbacks got hurt in this last game. Darby got hurt in the last game. So
yeah.
That definitely helps a lot. That'll help the offense, be able to pass a little bit more. Hopefully Adams will get a little bit more run in this game. But
right.
Honestly, I think this past game was a trap game, and I think they came out and did fairly well in it. I think they were definitely prepping more for the Eagles game because it was, you're on a short timeline. Kind of what the Broncos are. And outside of a few, freak plays, I think we'll get to that in a minute with the defense. This was a game the Packers, I think, pretty much dominated. It's just the scoreboard doesn't exactly show that, and sometimes the play didn't really show that. But it's a team that they should have manhandled, and they kind of kept them around. But that's a definition of a trap game, right? Like you're playing down to your opponent a little bit. You're looking, eyes on the next week because Philly is that team. They're 2 years removed from a Super Bowl. They have really talented pass rushers. They have really talented defensive line. Oh, by the way, they have one of the best offensive minds in the entire league. So I think definitely they had eyes towards the next week. But at the same point, this team did pretty well, all things considered, with sloppy conditions. And I can't be mad no matter what. A win's a win against a great defense. So
right. Yeah, no. We'll take it, right?
Yep.
So talking about defense, so yesterday and the prior 2 weeks, the 3 games of this season thus far, Brian Gutekunst and his scouting department and his staff look like geniuses. And I have to give him so much credit. Yesterday, we see, Rashawn Gary with his first career sack. We see, Savage with his first career interception, which was a phenomenal pick. Initially on TV, I thought he trapped the ball. It didn't look like he got his hands under it. And then as soon as I said it, they showed the replay, and I was like, oh, my God, that's catch. This guy is a catch. Throw that flag on the field, man. It was kind of a bummer that, he didn't get those extra return yards that he had. But, the law firm is Smith & Smith. The defense, man, is harassing quarterbacks. I think I read a stat that they are opposing quarterbacks have like a 63 point something passer rating against the Packers. They're a turnover forcing machine. They're leading the league in turnovers right now. Let's talk defense, man. This is exciting days we're living in.
Honestly, it's so absurd to see how well this defense is playing. And I tweeted it out this morning. I think it's something like the Smiths plus Gary have almost as many sacks as Clay Matthews, Nick Perry, and Gilbert had all of last year. And most of that came it's unbelievable, right? Like to have that three-man turnover that were your primary pass rushers outside of obviously Kyler Fackler was their leading pass rusher last year. I take that with a grain of salt just because now he's literally resigned to the role of 4th best pass rusher on this team.
Right.
But to say that you can have that much turnover and in the first 3 weeks almost have as many sacks as those 3 main pass rushers from 2018, that's an unbelievable change in what that brings to your defense. And it only helps your secondary. Like now you're seeing Jair Alexander can be the playmaker that he can be. And Darnell Savage, you're seeing it now. Like the kid can flat out fly and play. And being able to get that interception, those are confidence boosts for your younger cornerbacks. So, it all works in unison right now. Like being able to rush the passer and just disrupt like that, you're able to. They basically dared the Broncos to run the entire game. Like that's really and truly. And I will say this, and we'll get into this in a little bit. they ran at will against the Packers, and that's a little bit of a concern. But this pass defense, not many teams are going to be able to beat the Packers if they're running the ball the entire game. And this pass defense is good enough to stop just about anybody right now. They'll get a good test this Thursday night. You know, Carson Wentz is a really good quarterback, and Doug Peterson's a really good coach. But you know, this pass defense is ready to take on a lot of these top tier offenses.
Right. Yeah. You know, I found, I was kind of doing a little research for our talk today. And one of the things I had noticed was, you know, the Packers are 7th in the league in defensive snaps played from scrimmage. Mm-hmm. That means they've been on the field a lot. Okay. Yeah. And obviously this is due to the offense with a league leading, I think it's like 10 or 11 3 and outs. Mm-hmm. The Packers are number one, unfortunately, in that category in leading the league. But think about this. The Packers defense is only giving up 11 points per game. This is what they're averaging, which is nuts. Phenomenal. Because the only team, now they're second in the league, but there's only one team ahead of them, which is the Patriots, which basically, are they in the AFC least? Or what's their division? Or AFC North, or I forget where they're at in the AFC. But the truth is that, you know, the Packers have played some. I mean, you know, the Vikings and the Bears. You know, just a year and last year, you know, removed from these were playoff teams. You know, the fact that they're only giving up this many points per game is so impressive to me. And they've been out there on the field a ton. I mean, I've cringed at times. I don't know if you felt this way. I've cringed at times because I'm like, oh my gosh, man, offense, you know, come on, you haven't done anything. You see Martinez and some of these guys with their tongues hanging out, you know, I mean, they look like they're getting winded, you know, the game's winding down, you know, and yet they're holding up. They're playing stingy red zone defense. You know, we've seen some big plays. And let's talk about that. Let's just get there. So the run defense has been the one, you know, sour note, if you will, to this Packers defense. So let's talk about that a little bit. What are your thoughts?
And I know I tweeted this out during the game. The run defense is going to be a struggle this year until Oren Burks gets back. Really, they just don't have the right bodies for it. When Raven Green went down, I think I tweeted this at the time. I was like, that's a huge, huge detriment to the run defense because he can play that rover linebacker. He was really good at being able to cover those running backs in coverage, but also play the run defense. You know, it's also why I kind of question Gutekunst's decision to get rid of Mike Daniels because he was one of their better run defenders. He was a down lineman that was able to really affect the run game. Right. And they were also, you know, Lancaster had a pretty solid game. Blake Martinez had a pretty solid game, but you can't keep those guys out on the field all the time. Those guys are going to get tired at a certain point, and they're also huge mismatches in the passing game. So you need to have people who you can keep on the field pretty consistently. Oren Burks is that. And right now, I think I checked the practice logs today. He didn't practice, so he's probably not going to play in this Eagles game either. And the Eagles have a vaunted running offense. That's going to be a real struggle for this team if they don't really, you know, grow up in the next couple of days and, you know, are able to stop the run. But you know, they do have some good run stuffers in there that can stay on the field. Like Kenny Clark's able to, you know, he's a 3-down player. Montravius Adams, when healthy, can do the same. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle at times in the run game just because they just don't have the right bodies for it right now. And I think Pettine also said, you get to Miami faster through the air than on the ground. So I'm pretty sure they're just going to let whatever runs run on the running game. So it's not a concern of theirs. And honestly, it's not a huge concern of mine because I'd rather the pass defense be what is good about this defense. And it's the best. Right now, it's the best pass defense in the league. So I'll take the warts in the running game.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of Pettine's strategy a little bit too. He doesn't want to get gashed in the running game whatsoever. But Cook had a big run against him, and so did Lindsey a little bit. But the thing is right now they're ranked 25th in the league. Allowing 131 yards per game. There's in a couple weeks, you got Ezekiel Elliott, and the Cowboys running attack. And here's the thing: is when you finally get to the point where you got to play that kind of team, which is a run dominant team, you're gonna have to see what you're made out of, because with a team that can really create holes, and to be honest, I think all of these teams have pretty good running games. The teams they played thus far. Given that the Packers have not really allowed that to convert into a ton of points, is pretty impressive. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of the area that they're willing to bend in at this point. But, I was kind of curious. I don't know if you noticed this, but, I didn't really see Goodson on the field much at all yesterday. I don't know if, again, that was due to just the design of the defense, kind of maybe also giving him a chance to kind of, not swim with his head too much in the game, and, hopefully kind of get him going.
Yeah, so just looking at it, I know Goodson had 25 snaps in yesterday's game, so he played, not a ton, basically a third of the snaps, but, it's tough to involve somebody that's brand new to the defense, 2 weeks in since he's joined the team. So, but I do know that they played Redmond a lot. So I think they played him 27 snaps, and that's kind of that role that they carved out for him. So, it's just going to be, I can't say it enough. It's just going to be a struggle, and they're going to get into a couple of tough games this year with good running offenses. And I think they're fine just giving up that yardage. This is, and close your ears, Packer fans. I don't know, you're not going to want to hear this, but this is like that 2010 defense under Dom Capers that, at times they would really get gashed for yardage, but they did not let up points. They absolutely shut teams down when it got to the red zone. And if it weren't for a blown Dean Lowry tackle on the goal line, you're probably looking at a much more, eye-pleasing score line. They really were a finger slip away from, shutting them down to 10 points. So
And speaking of that Dean Lowry, missed tackle, their offensive lineman ripped Lindsey away from Lowry and threw him into the end zone. Actually, I had a fan tweet out of the NFL rule book that was illegal. And I was kind of like, you know what? I didn't think it was, because, I kind of thought it was sort of the same as when they just pushed the pile. But I thought that was interesting, and either way, it wasn't called, so that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I don't know how often they're going to make that call. You're trying to get the extra yard there, and I know I said it earlier, Dalton Risner is just a big man. He's going to try and, push his man in front of him. So it's not surprising that he pushed his own, light running back into the end zone, because we all know how small Lindsey is. But, I would have liked to have gotten that goal line stop there, but it's hard to really be mad with them. I know I've said it a couple of times, but really sloshy conditions, that affects how you play. It affects your footing and affects your grip. But these are professionals. They need to be able to make those plays. And, if they do make that play, really you're looking at a complete blowout as opposed to, if they eked it out through the last two quarters.
Right, exactly. So, all right, well, Matt, let's have a little bit of fun here. So I got a couple things that just want to get your 2 cents on. So Danny Fatali had obviously the big catch yesterday. It was a fantastic play. Comes out on the wheel route, catches Jewell, by surprise. I think Jewell just expected him to just hit the hole, and Fatali flies by him, elbow down, about half a yard short of the goal line, 27-yard catch. Is Danny Vitale the new Packers People's Champ?
I mean, right now it has to be, right? Like, the other Packers People's Champs right now are not having great years between Kumaro and Tanyan. So, and that wheel route was just an absolute thing of beauty. I loved every second of that. I really wish he would have scored the touchdown. Seeing a Vitale Lambeau leap, I think that would have probably solidified his hometown hero, the vibe he's giving off right now. But yeah, right now, I'm absolutely all Team Vitale.
Yeah, he's a funny guy to watch. He's just, this dude's got personality, just dripping off him. He's hilarious. And I love how Rodgers gets a kick out of him. Rodgers, talks about how he's a meathead and all this kind of stuff. But the thing is, man, when it comes down to it, I respect the man's game. Yesterday was a really sweet glimpse, in the window of what this Packers offense can show the league. And so I guess the thing that I was kind of excited about that play is, Rodgers has subtly kind of hinted, just saying, like, we're setting things up for the future. We're going to show some different looks week by week. And so this was kind of a nice little wrinkle that they unveiled yesterday.
It's the kind of stuff, again, I said it last week and I'll say it this week. This is the kind of stuff you brought in Matt LaFleur for. It's stuff you wouldn't see Mike McCarthy run with. A wheel route under Mike McCarthy was shunned. This was, it involving the running backs in the passing game is such a new concept. And that's partly why you're seeing more of Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, climbing up the receiving charts. He gets their backs involved a little bit more. And honestly, I don't know if you follow, raw athletic scores or mock draftable and follow, what their measurables are, but Danny Vitale is an absolute athlete, and getting him against linebackers and coverage, that's the kind of mismatch you want in the passing game. So, that kind of involvement, I'm all for it. It makes, you create the mismatches, you create the misdirection, and defenses have to start paying attention to it. And, oh, by the way, that'll free up your Adamses and your MVSs more. So, this is all the good kind of creativity that a Matt LaFleur offense can bring, but will also open up other things across the field. So it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet, and like you said, I think the there's no roof on Lambeau Field, but if there was a top, it would have blown right off if he would have got his opportunity for a Lambeau leap. But that's something for the fans to look out, here in the coming weeks.
Yep.
So I got a fun fact for you. Coach LaFleur is the only other first-year head coach of the Packers to start his tenure 3-0, man. There's so much to be said about this. I read a crazy stat. I think the other, I wish I had it in front of me. The other several new first-year coaches or first-year coaches with their teams, head coaches, their combined record is ridiculous. LaFleur is literally just, he's killing it. That's that's the best way to say it.
Yeah, honestly, with the schedule that he was given for the first 4 games of the season, obviously we'll see how they come out this upcoming Thursday, but coming out even 3-1 out of that stretch, that's good for any coach, let alone a rookie coach. So kudos to him. I know he's taken his warts a little bit on the play calling a little bit. I think some of that just kind of comes with being a coach. It's going to take a little bit of time, It's the reason, Mike McCarthy, it wasn't at that same rate with Brett Favre as a Hall of Fame quarterback when he started in 2007. It just takes a little bit of time to get that relationship going a little bit and get a little bit of rhythm with an offense. So really kudos to Matt LaFleur. It's a hard league to win in, and to start your career 3-0, tip of the cap to him.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I think it's just something that's pretty sweet. I saw a fan, of course, they tweeted out one of the most ridiculous things that I read, but obviously Vince Lombardi being the only other coach to start his tenure with the Packers 3-0, and they're like, they're going to rename the trophy the LaFleur Trophy, And, people just jump to the gun so fast. But it just made me laugh, more than anything, because obviously nobody would ever do that. So
what is it going to be, like a LaFleur de Lis or something? Like,
I have no idea. They
Man.
should just name it the Packers Trophy, I guess. Who knows?
No, it's good to see though, and it sounds like the players really enjoy him, and that you see some of the post game stuff in the locker room, and
Right.
they seem to really have some camaraderie with them, and I think he lets these guys be themselves too. I think that's
Right.
That you've seen it with the Smiths, you've seen it with Jair, like they have some fun in the locker room and a little bit of cockiness to them that I don't think really existed in the McCarthy era. So it's good to see, and hopefully it keeps building over the next few weeks.
Right. And, Rodgers talked about that a little bit yesterday. And he's just talking about this energy. He's like, man, this energy is something that he hasn't seen in many, many years. And, and you see it. I mean, all you got to do is take a minute to get on the Packers website and look at these guys' interviews. Look at the fun that they're having. Look at the swagger that they're carrying. And they're backing it up on the field. And most of it obviously right now is on the defensive side. But once that offense, man, gets its swagger going, this team is absolutely going to be formidable. I'm already feeling like I'm eating my words because I have been vocal saying that, I thought the Packers were probably going to, finish the season at 9-7. They're eating up the wins right now. And I read another stat today that basically said that, of the teams that have started 3-0, I think it's like almost a guaranteed chance to get into the playoffs or some ridiculous number like that.
Yeah.
And while that is exciting now, we have to temper our expectations because it's still September.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, that being said, I had a couple silent contributors. I don't know if you want to add to this. A couple guys that I did some awesome stuff. Lancaster, he had a couple tackles, 5 assists. He was in there in the run game a lot, just throwing that beef around. J.K. Scott, man, this guy is a weapon. 4 punts, 212 yards, 53-yard average. I mean, this dude is turning out again to be just another genius pick from Gutekunst. Do you have any other silent contributors? Maybe guys that weren't, as noticed as much.
Elton Jenkins. Honestly, this offensive line solidified. Lane Taylor's down for the year. You're in sloshy conditions against a really good defense, and you don't allow any sacks. Yeah, that's a win. He's a rookie. He's playing really well. He's playing big. If he turns out to be as even remotely close to what his ceiling could be as far as his athleticism is concerned, boy howdy, that's going to be a nice pick for Ryan Gutekunst.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, so let's finish this off. Who was your player of the game?
Player of the game for me, definitely was you got to go with Jair Alexander. Honestly, that turnover he had, ripping the ball out of Noah Fant's hands, he's just got so much swagger about him. He had another pass breakup. He's starting his All-Pro campaign right now, and I don't hesitate saying that. He was Pro Bowl last week. He's All-Pro this week, and if he keeps it up, he's going to get there.
Yeah, most definitely. My play of the game, close, but I'm going with Preston Smith on the defense. 4 tackles, 3 sacks. He had that forced fumble. That dude was just all over the field yesterday. And, these guys we're seeing a complimentary defense. If it's not the guys getting home to the quarterback, it's the guys in the back locking them down. And it's just an amazing thing to watch. That Alexander, forced fumble strip, that was an amazing play. I mean, and I don't know if you saw, oh gosh, who tweeted it? I believe it was Nagler. He tweeted out the reason that Jair was able to, strip that ball from Fant was because Kenny Clark had dropped so far back into coverage. I don't know if you saw that little video clip. And Kenny Clark is back there, and you actually see Fant look his way and kind of go like, what the heck? Like there's this mountain of a man standing over here, and Jair just picked his pocket, man. It was an amazing play.
Yeah, that was my other key contributor. Is Preston Smith has honestly been pound for pound as good, if not better than Za'Darius right now with those 3 sacks and that forced fumble. They just place him anywhere on the field. But yeah, that Kenny Clark drop back in coverage was hilarious to see. Reminiscent of B.J. Raji back in the day.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's just so odd to see that size of a person, be out there, but hey, man, Kenny's a freak. So pet and do whatever you want with the guy.
Pay the man.
Do whatever you want. So let's wrap it up, brother. Let's wrap this up. Quick game prediction for Thursday Night Football. Eagles are coming to town against the Packers. Who do you got winning the game, and what kind of score do you think it's going to be?
It's going to be a little bit of a track meet. I think you're going to see, the run defense is going to be put to the test. Packers are give up a little bit more points than I think people would like. But I still think with all the injuries that the Eagles have coming in, I think the Packers offense finally gets their feet under them. And I think we're probably looking at 35-28 Packers.
Oof. Alrighty. I'm along those same lines. I'm also feeling like the offense is going to take another step this week. And I feel like, they can do a little bit more even on the short week. The good thing is for them is that they're not the ones traveling. So, they get to sleep in on Thursday morning and rest it up, and get ready for the game. So I'm also giving the Packers the win here. I'm going to say about 31 points on offense, and I think they'll hold them to around 20. So another, maybe about 11-point spread or so. But yeah, I definitely think this is a very winnable game for the Packers. So, man, Matt, great talking to you. To all the listeners out there, thank you so much for listening. Matt and I are going to be here all season long. We look forward to just trying to bring you, the reviews of the games and just, talk Packers football for you. So once again, here from PTTF Podcast, I'm Duke. He's Matt. We hope you guys have a great week. Enjoy the victory week. Thursday Night Football is coming up soon. And Matt, hit him with a Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.